Well, it is my pleasure today to introduce Jill Downen. Jill was named a Guggenheim Fellow in 2010. Other awards include a McDowell Colony Residency with support from the Leon Levy Foundation and the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. She exhibits nationally and internationally. She is represented by Bruno David Gallery in St. Louis and currently has a show up called Jill Downen Midsection. She also is installing today, and will be finishing today, a site-specific installation at the UNT Art Gallery, which will be opening tomorrow night from 5 to 7. I hope you can all attend, and I will let her do the rest. So please join me in welcoming Jill Downen.
Thank you. It's great to be back, and I want to thank Laura Bear, who unfortunately is ill today, but she's invited me to speak with you today. And I wanted to acknowledge Tracy Robertson, who I've been working with over the past year to create and install this exhibition for you, which opens tomorrow night. So today, what I would like to share with you is a set of images that really focus on our relationship between the human body and architecture. And I would like to share with you some of my thoughts and ideas about space, and how we understand who we are in the world with different concepts of space. So for some time now, I have been creating installations that deal with the symbiotic and interdependent relationship between the human body and architecture. I see architecture as flesh. Architecture is an extension of the self. It's a second skin, and it's a prolongation of the self. If you think for a moment, you only have one body. That's it. That's what you get in this world. Everything that you know and understand comes through your five senses. And when we think about architecture, we even build it around our bodily orientation. We have a front side, a back side, up side, down, left, and right. And we have an inside and an outside. And so I think that architecture and the way we express ourselves through architecture goes beyond the basic human need for shelter. Gaston Bachelard, the French philosopher, says that the role of architecture, particularly one's childhood home, is to shelter daydreaming. And so I think we have a very conscious and sometimes unconscious connection to our built environment. And ultimately, what I'm interested in doing is heightening one's awareness of their body in space. I'm currently living and working in St. Louis. And has anybody been to St. Louis in here? Yeah, we've got this really neat thing called the Arch, Errol Sarner. And when I think of St. Louis, one of the reasons I really like it is that it's an in-between city. Okay, when I got to Texas, I was asking Tracy, do you consider yourself here being in the South or being in the West? You know, and that's kind of an interesting question. In St. Louis, it's really an in-between city. If you're from Chicago, St. Louis feels like a southern city. If you're from Memphis, it feels like a northern city. If you're from Cincinnati, Ohio, it feels like a western city where western expansion began, and Lewis and Clark started off toward the west, which is what the Gateway Arch commemorates. But if you're from Kansas City, which is really a cow town, you feel like St. Louis is more eastern. So it's a strange place. It's kind of a crossroads. And what I love about its kind of mental framework being an in-between place is that it becomes a place for creative possibility. Because its definition becomes soft and fluid, ouch, that in-between space, I think, is a place of possibility. When I'm driving around town, I stop and look at things that inform my work. I take pictures of these things. I'm very interested in the built environment rising up, the energy of construction workers, their bodies being united to concrete and structures as they're physically building the things. Next. So within, I have my whole life within about a 5-mile radius. So I see construction sites and I see buildings coming down, and I love that energy of things rising and falling in a space simultaneously, and how those things become an expression of restoration, destruction, creation, these kinds of things. St. Louis is really known for its brick because of the clay deposits in that area, and so when buildings come down, they salvage the bricks, and workers work very carefully to pull them out of the rubble and stack them and sell them. Now, a lot of my work, I would say actually all of my work, is based on an understanding that there is no such thing as objective space. In Euclidean thought, in the space of a blueprint, we use mathematics, we use true 90-degree angles to inscribe a kind of space, or to create a conception of a kind of space that I think is ideal and not real. So one of the things I've learned that my life has taught me, next, is that space is actually subjective. Because we experience it through our bodies, and because our 5 senses are only vehicles for truly taking in the world around us and processing it, spaces, there is no such thing as objective space in my conception, in the body of artwork that I'm making. I learned this from my father. And what you're looking at now is a photograph of my dad's torso reflected in a mirror. You can see his white t-shirt and a little bit of his blue jeans in the center of the photo. And that mirror is bumped up against a plaster wall that has plaster knocked off of it because our house got struck by lightning when I was about 9. And when I saw the damage that the lightning strike had created, it really embedded in my mind that the architecture around me that was designed to protect me had bones and skin, and these kinds of things were really important. Next. So I really learned from my father, who labored and worked on the house, that architecture is a permeable, flesh-like entity that expands and contracts to meet our needs. My dad would help provide for the family and meet the needs of the family by putting in drywall, moving walls, pouring concrete stairs, putting in a drop ceiling, changing flooring. He was always doing something interesting to the house to make it better. And as I saw him labor on it, I learned that labor is an act of love. And I learned that the house was flesh. So this is called architectural cellulite. And this is made from plaster. It's made from gypsum. And when the photographer came to document this piece in my studio, she walked in with this heavy equipment, and she looked at the piece, and she put the equipment down, and she stood up, and she sucked in her belly, and she straightened her spine. And I loved it, because she had a physiological response to seeing the artwork. And that is precisely that in-between space that I'm interested in sharing with people. I love this notion that we can have an experience, and through the eye, that would go through the brain and actually cause a physiological response in the body. So it's that space between the body, the architecture, and the art that I'm moving in between. This is, again, a kind of expression of what I call architectural cartilage. When I was at McDowell Colony, they put me in I don't know if you're familiar with McDowell Colony, but it's one of the oldest residency programs for artists in the country. And they give you a private studio out in a wooded area up in New Hampshire. And I got this studio with these warped walls. It was perfect and exactly what I needed. So I went in there and I did a 28-day intervention into the architecture. progressively digging into the walls and sculpting on the walls to push and pull and build up the space. And as I was doing so, I started collecting all the little chips of plaster that were falling off the wall and arranging them. And so that piece for me becomes about kind of expansion and contraction of the volume of that space. It's called line and joining. Visual analogy is also something that I've used in the past. This is called 5 o'clock shadow. And here I'm using a coax table inside the wall to create that visual analogy between hair growth and skin magnified to a large degree. Next. And sometimes I will modify pieces, rescale it, and re-show it in different venues. So this is swollen and cracked next to a different version of 5 o'clock shadow. Keep going.
Okay.
And they're swollen and cracked. And what I'd like to do next is when I walk into a space, I like to ask myself, what is interesting about this room? What's happening? And in this case, for a push-up, it was this steel I-beam holding up the ceiling in this somewhat squarish gallery space. And push-up really starts to become about a push and a pull between a masculine and a feminine force, gravity. And technically, just to address that for a minute, I'm matching the materials in the gallery, I'm matching the color, the section of I-beam that I needed to add to the vertical element to create this bend required finding that material and matching it up. And then I was sculpting directly in the gallery over a week-long period. The Contemporary Art Museum in St. Louis does a biennial program for local artists, and I was invited to do a show there with a grant in 2004. And I started with the premise, you're doing great.
Okay.
I started with the premise that a building is a kind of body. And with this floor plan, I was given Gallery A, which is in the very lower left-hand corner. It has a curved wall, windows facing the sidewalk, and the space is about 50 feet by 45 feet with 12-foot walls and an additional space above walls. And so this notion of this space, the gallery, the museum itself, is really about its social identity within the community and a kind of physical identity that the building has. So I was really interested in this kind of gesture and sweep, a kind of an arm bending, welcoming you into the museum. And secondly, next, the notion that the building had developed these cracks as the concrete floor was settling into place. The building was only 4 months old when I had my exhibition. So I saw this crack as being the physical evidence of this building kind of, shifting and settling down in to the floor plan. And so I wanted to accentuate that and start to build up that surface. So this will give you a sense of the scale. These are what I call tendon forms in the corner. And that'll give you a sense of the height. The lighting really becomes subtle in the museum at night. And so the forms on the floor almost start to disappear. What was interesting at the opening reception, as about 600 people moved through the space, is that people didn't see the bumps on the floor. And people were stumbling over them, and I was really worried. I even stumbled on one of them at one point. And it was almost as if the floor was asserting its presence within the crowd. And it was pretty funny because my boss, the dean of the school where I was teaching, tripped, and then his wife tripped, and it was kind of a fun moment where we all relaxed. This is a section of the installation where I think it's the most unnameable for me. We can look at this and all have associations, and that's open-ended, but what I'm fascinated by is seams and areas where one edge will meet another edge, or one plane will meet another plane, and what happens when the concrete meets the drywall? What happens when the hard meets the soft? What happens when the horizontal meets the vertical? So you can see the cracks run across the floor, through the forms, up into the wall. This is the Thomas Jefferson boarding school in St. Louis. It is for junior high through high school students. And this is their, what would you call this? Like their entry room, the kind of grand room that you come into when you first visit the school. And I was invited to create a site-specific installation for this place.
Oh,
and I used the she-wolf. How many are familiar with this from your art history? I used the she-wolf as an inspiration because the curriculum at Thomas Jefferson is a classical education. These students are being really trained in Western thought. Their senior trip takes them to Italy, where they get to go to Rome and see all of these different incarnations of Romulus and Remus being nurtured by the she-wolf. And these students are expected to be future leaders. So I love this idea of how can I speak to Thomas Jefferson School and their whole agenda, their whole programming, and create a nurturing environment for them. So I have this she ceiling complementing she wolf. Okay, so sorry if I messed this up, but so here I have these breasts hanging from the ceiling. And each individual breast was shaped and fitted into this kind of copper, beautifully ornate ceiling. Go back. And the piece was censored out of the show 3 days before the opening. So I never got to finish it. And I was terribly upset. You know, as artists, we all just want to make our work, right? So it's really, really challenging to have somebody yank something away from you right at the moment you're about ready to close in on it. And why is that? You know, I think it's a pretty benign ceiling. I'll leave that maybe open-ended for you to think about, you know, why would something like this be censored? It's an odd conundrum. So as an artist, I thought, well, I'm going to step back. I'm just going to take she ceiling and I'm going to take it back to my studio. I had 32 of these breasts at the time, breast forms. So I packed it away and I just decided to forget about it. Okay, next slide. Went on to some other shows. This is a corner piece from a show called Uneasy Opposition. And here I'm starting to look at construction sites and integrate gestures from construction workers who will often prop up walls, temporary walls with 2x4s. You see this a lot if you're going by construction sites. And I love this notion of the 2x4 rammed into the flesh of the wall, that we can take a moment of something that is passing away and something that is sagging and aging and freeze it for a moment to stop and consider what is temporal, meaning our bodies being temporal, architecture being temporal. And that led to, slow down.
Okay, sorry.
That led to hard hat optional, as opposed to hard hat required. So this is hard hat optional. What I'm interested in here is taking that volume of the space from the posture of place, and I started to ask myself, what if I turned my installations inside out? What if I stopped sculpting on the walls and blending everything into the walls seamlessly? And what would happen if I took that envelope of architecture and turned it inside out? What could happen there? So here comes she ceiling reincarnated. I pulled all the blocks out and started reshaping them and reformatting them so they would no longer fit on the ceiling, but that they would become portable, movable blocks. This is about 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet.
Those are.
And next. I'm looking at architecture as skin. Here we've got a squarish form that's solid plaster, that's like a ceiling tile that's shriveled up and dried, an element that's like an architectural bone, more cartilage, and a plumb line. What I like about installation art is that I can invite the viewer in to navigate that space and have an open-ended conversation. So this gallery full of objects is kind of like a point and a counterpoint in a way of moving around and encountering bodily and architectural forms that unfold through time and space. I like the notion that something's being moved, that this is on a site. This is on a site. Where is it going? Where does it come from? Has the construction worker or has the artist left it momentarily to go eat lunch? She'll come back. This I want to talk about just for a moment, the technical aspect of this. The very sexually suggestive piece I showed a moment ago of the 2x4 into the form kind of dropping from the ceiling. This is that same block. Okay? Turn it in your mind, turn it in your imagination. I took the 2x4 away. That's the imprint of the 2x4. The block is no longer hanging from the ceiling, but it's turned upright. Okay, so when I deinstall an exhibition, I will often repurpose the forms that I'm using. Next. This is an activity that I do in my studio. I make maquettes and small models as a way to really be playful. And this is what I'm beginning to think of as a syntax or a visual language. So I think of this as a kind of alphabet, and I can pick these elements up and move them around and create different words. I can create different paragraphs. I can build, expand, and turn meanings around and over again. I can pose questions with these and explore different possibilities. These are all currently being kept in like a flat file, little flat file drawers. And I make a lot of models. Every time I go to a gallery and I'm having a show that I'm specifically creating for, I'll make a scale model of that space. And then sometimes, like in this case, I'm just making an imaginary gallery. And then I move from the gallery model to the actual space on the floor. So this is how hard hat optional develops. Next. I worked in the model, played around with different possibilities, went to the studio, sectioned off an area, started moving the blocks around the studio, making more work, going back to the model, and this was at Bernard David Gallery, so you can see here now the sketch, the three-dimensional sketch of the arm and how it's holding up the wall. Next. The crates. There's the studio shot. Next. And back to imaginary models. So when I do a residency, this one I did at Vermont Studio Center, it's very hard to work large. My work is very logistically complex. So I'll make models, and this is a small sketch I made there. Next. Playing around with the architectural bones that I've created. And imaginative spaces. So I would like to suggest at this moment that architecture is not a noun, it's a verb. Architecture shapes and structures our movements. It provides for us. It responds to our emotions and our senses. The action of looking out a window really defines what a window is. Juhani Polosmov, architect who wrote Eyes of the Skin, was someone that I was able to study with briefly, and this is something he liked to say. That looking out a window defines what a window is, not the glass, not the window sill. This is the stairway in the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Has anyone been fortunate enough to go to the Leaning Tower of Pisa? Yes, amazing, isn't it? And were you able to climb it? No. Okay. This is what it looks like inside. Okay. And what I love about this is here we have an ancient work of architecture that shows years of human touch. The golden color you see on the wall is a patina built up from the oil of human hands continually touching the surface, because when you're walking up these steps, you actually have to shift your body and continually adjust your sense of balance. Because you're walking up a spiral staircase, within a cylindrical form that's tilted. Okay? And so people have to touch the wall to just kind of climb up this thing. And of course, the steps are worn down from centuries of people climbing the stairs. It's a beautiful example of the imprint of the human body onto architecture. Much in the same way, I touch architectural forms over and over and over again when I'm sculpting to get those seamless, blended forms into the wall. Requires 3, 4, 5 layers of drywall joint compound with sanding in between each layer. And when I deinstall an exhibition, like the posture of place, deep scars often result in the walls, just like we see scars in the built environment. I want to shift now and talk a little bit about a permanent public piece, because everything I've shown you up till now, other than the object-based work, has been a temporary installation that has been dismantled. Just last year, I was fortunate to team up with a design firm called Act 3. Act 3 is an interdisciplinary design firm based in St. Louis, and they designed my website, really good designers. And so COCA is a place in St. Louis. It's the Center of Creative Arts, and it is an arts education center for dance, theater, music, and visual arts. And they had a new expansion on their building, and they commissioned a work for this large wall that is connected to this long stairway. So Act 3 and I proposed a series of waves, kind of rhythmic lines that suggest currents rippling out into the community and affecting the community in a creative way. And these are made much in the same way the other sculptures are, with a polystyrene core. They're solid, and they're permanently affixed to the wall and blended in. And if you go up the stairway and pause on the landing, you look up, and this is the type of view you'll get. In addition to the sculpture, there are LED lighting strips on the top of each wave. And these lights actually change color with the viewer's movement. There are 2 hidden motion detectors in the lobby, and as visitors to COCA enter, they trigger these motion detectors, which will go through a series of color palette changes and correspond to a sound piece that Act 3 composed and recorded for the piece. And that sound emanates from hidden speakers under the stairway. So it's truly an interactive, experiential piece in the lobby of the institution. The Oklahoma City Museum of Art asked me to come do a show in 2010. It was just about a year ago. And this is their floor plan, and I had the gallery on the top floor. It's the lower right hand, so you can see the shape of it. What's distinguishing about it is this very long, subtly curved 60-foot wall. Okay, so the space is about 60 feet long, and you can kind of guess at the proportions along the other 3 walls. It looks like this when my first site visit took place. I take photographs on a site visit and videos. I go back to my studio, I print the photographs, I turn them into Xerox copies, and I start drawing on them. And in this exhibition, I started to think about counterparts and the different elements in my visual language as being parts and counterparts that would balance each other. So here are the Xerox drawings and a set of conceptual words. I'm going to stop on this for just a minute. This is important, and I think in the creative process, it's important for me to be recording my thoughts. And this is one of those moments where I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm grabbing a Sharpie and I'm trying to write down these thoughts. And I started thinking about architecture and the body and writing down all these words: skeleton, skin, void, density, space and time, gravity, support, and thinking about how these things were relating in the exhibition I was creating, and how could all of the different elements start to balance each other. And by the time I got to the bottom of the list, I realized that it was the space in between this kind of binary way of thinking that was truly what was important. And so I really do think in a non-binary and non-linear way. So I rewrote the list, next, and it really looks like this in my head, okay? And if we go to the exhibit, next, it starts to move in a way around this shift line which happens along the 16-foot wall. So in my mind, in the space, there's a critical movement along this line. And the non-binary way of thinking starts to swirl through that. So up against that 60-foot wall, I see a void or a kind of threshold that can be crossed or entered through the imagination. Next.
Okay.
So here's, again, the space fairly empty, and there's the exhibition. And what I'm doing over along that 60-foot wall is I'm sifting plaster dust. Okay? It starts to look like a threshold, maybe a beach, an open expanse, in with all the object-based work. Next. And you can start to see how it creates a line that pushes up a zone or an area that pushes up against that white void of the wall. And I think that this is actually my background as a painter coming through. In the early part of my career, I painted for 15 years. And the idea of the white canvas, the idea of approaching the white void as a conceptual space has somehow found its way in my sensibility and my temperament. It's remained. The plumb line here is, some of you may know, it's a carpenter's tool or a construction worker's tool to measure the trueness of walls. It uses a weight at the end of a long string, and it helps the builders build their walls to true plumb. This is tendon on pallet, and this piece was actually collected by the Oklahoma City Museum of Art, so if you go there, you might be able to see that in person. It's about 8 feet tall. And I should say, can you go back for just a minute?
Yeah, of course.
That tendon, if you'll notice, it's turned upright. It was one of the tendons from the Contemporary Art Museum. Okay? So now instead of being high up on the wall, 12 feet, it's been turned into an object and turned vertically. Next. Architectural bones in an assortment of objects on a shelf. Thinking again about how these things are situated and how they may be picked up and moved and built with. And this is architectural cartilage on rack. I had to show the boobs one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last project I'm going to show. This is a small chapel in South St. Louis called the Luminary. And this is a, what would you call it? Like between the wars period, between the two world wars, that kind of period of construction, there's very little substrate in the plaster walls. They're very fragile. It's a chapel on the upper level of what was a convent. So through the 70s, there was actually a Catholic school in that building, and students would be on the lower part of the building. But this was a private chapel for the nuns, and no one else was allowed to go in there. It was where they would have their own private masses, where they would go and pray and sing. So I love the space. The moment I walked into it, I responded to its Italian sense of proportion, the vaulted ceiling, and the natural light. Even though it had these very ugly 1960s light fixtures hanging from the upper part. So I started to go in and modify the architecture. And in this space, I was interested in inviting people into a quiet, immersive experience that would really slow them down. And I thought, well, what is the function of a chapel? The function of a chapel is to retreat, to meditate. How can I access that for the contemporary viewer? So I started to alter the architecture slightly. What I'm doing here is bending the walls by about 5 inches, so they start to slope slightly. Next. I covered up every doorway, every outlet, took out the lighting fixtures, And this is what resulted. The plumb line in the center of the room was one of the most important gestures in the work, because it, in essence, is the only true, straight, up and down line in the space. And so as people walked into the room, and I want to reiterate here that only one person was allowed in the room at a time. So I had a set of instructions outside the installation. One viewer could come in at a time. There was a chair in the room, and they were invited to sit in that chair as long as they wanted. And they could move that chair anywhere they wanted in the room, as long as they could stay on the gray part of the floor. And so the opening reception lasted from 10 in the morning till about 7 o'clock at night. And the natural light in the space changed throughout the course of the day. So here you're seeing a very kind of diffuse glow. And people reported walking into the room and feeling like they were on a boat. They knew something wasn't right, and they felt like the floor was slanted. And because the contour lines of the edges of the walls were shifted ever so slightly, it wasn't immediately perceptible, but it was sensed. Next. At one point, I had and many other viewers had this experience, I had a kind of phenomenological thing happen where my perception was altered. I was standing in the room approximately where this girl is sitting, and I was looking past the plumb line and to the edge of the altar space behind her. And the plumb line looked like it was hanging at an angle, and the wall looked like it was straight. And I knew that my mind was compensating for my perception, that my perception was lying to me about what I was seeing in order to orient my body in space. And it was one of the most delightful and profound and conceptual moments about the piece. The altar itself is covered again with sifted plaster dust. And the edge of the step there creates a kind of threshold or boundary that signifies that you're not to cross into that space. This was written about in Art in America, December 2010, if you wanted to look that up. But it's also on my website. I think Cooper wrote a really beautiful review of it, and there is a PDF download on my website. I think there's one more. Okay, that's it. Yeah. So I'm going to end on this image and just conclude with the thought that I think we live in a really fast-paced culture, that we're really bombarded continually with images through technology and through the speed of life that actually alters the way we see and alters the way we think. Technology actually allows us to see in almost unnatural ways. Okay? And so what I'm really hoping to offer viewers is an experience that reminds them that they are in a body and that you are flesh, and that there's a human need for stillness and quietness and an understanding of who you are, moving through space and time, and living out your life in a process that's transformative, where at a certain point you're no longer going to be here. So to kind of think about those broader issues and bring it up in an umbrella way, I'm ultimately interested in what is impermanent and in what is eternal. Thank you.
Take a few questions. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions, maybe a little less than that. Anyone?
Yes.
This won't change my view on how wonderful your work is, but I'm just wondering, what are your spiritual beliefs? Because the space and the mind and the body, it's just all, I'm just curious.
Personally, every single day, and I will tell you in the book of Amos, I think that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing and making what I'm making if it weren't for my own earthly father. And then Florida, that chapel being my living room